Hello. Welcome to I Just Had a Lot of Taco Bell, and now I want to take a 16-hour nap. The reading for today will be on 2 Timothy 1 through 7, but I'm mainly going to be talking about the last verse in that little passage, so let's dive right in. First of all, things you need to know that Paul is in jail, awaiting his execution, and he still finds it important to write to Timothy, who he sees as his son. He'd been in jail before, but there wasn't going to be some earthquake that's going to open the doors, and this wasn't some temporary stay. He was going to die here. You know, when I think about what Paul must have felt, I don't think my first thought would be, hey, I'm going to write a letter. I would want to find the fastest way out of there before I had my head on a stick. He must have had a lot of self-control to sit down and write those letters that he wrote in jail, instead of freaking out about what's going to happen in the next few weeks or days. Something also to mention is that Paul loved Timothy. They weren't related by blood, but the love they had for each other was like a father and a son. In fact, in the passage, Paul does call Timothy his son. There was such a strong love with those two that even in prison, when Paul was facing death, he still had time to give advice to Timothy. This was one of the last letters that Paul wrote, so you knew it had to be important, especially since Paul didn't usually write letters to just one specific person. He did a few times, and he did the most with Timothy. There was real, unconditional family love here, and they weren't related by blood at all. In Paul's last days, he spent them talking to Timothy. Also, this is the end of his life, so he's thinking back about what he did and thinking going forward with the people that will succeed him, which will be Timothy. Paul had to have a lot of strength to do what he did. He brought hundreds, if not thousands, of people to Christ. He started churches all over the world at that point where they were. And there had to have been some serious strength with him. Even in jail, it probably took Paul a lot of strength to write Timothy the letter. But all of this self-control, this love, and this power that I just talked about, that's not Paul's. So let's look where it is from. If we look at 2 Timothy 1:7, it says this: "For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and self-control." First thing I want to touch on is the word spirit. This isn't like our soul, like our spirit. Like, we're the ones with the love and the power, and we're chock full of self-control. I'm sure we are. No, that's not what this is. This is the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the third person of the Trinity, God Himself, the real source of our holy power. When Paul says we were given a spirit of strength, love, and self-control, he literally meant we were given the Holy Spirit. That's where this comes from. But when he says power, what does he mean? Is it physical strength? I guess that doesn't really make sense, because if it was, wouldn't Paul just bust himself out of jail? No, this power is different. This type of power exists simply because the source is the source. The source is power, and the source is the Holy Spirit. It's the power to perform miracles, to change hearts, and to follow Christ. And the only place we can get that power is through God. Next is love. I talked about this earlier, how the love between Timothy and Paul was incredibly strong. And this isn't some Valentine's Day heart type of love where it's all sappy and everything's happy-go-lucky. No, this was gritty, unconditional, real love. What's called agape. It's a Greek word basically meaning unconditional love, also known as the love of God. Only through God and the power of the Holy Spirit can we find that type of godly, real love. And then self-control. This one's hard. I know in my life there's been many times when I wanted to have something that I shouldn't have, or I wanted to do something that I shouldn't do. And sometimes I'll give in to that temptation. And just like we all do, we're broken and weak people. It happens all the time. We need something, someone to give us self-control to break ourselves from that thing. And that something is the Spirit. Not only does the Spirit give us strength, but the Spirit also gives us the ability, even the choice, to say no to things. Only through God could Paul have the self-control to write a letter like this, facing death. It's the only place he could get the love for Timothy that he had, the whole reason that he wrote this letter. And it's the only place where he could have the power to change so many hearts during his life. And only through God can we do that too. If you feel like you're not good enough, remember that God gives you power. If you ever feel like you're not worth love, remember that God doesn't just love you, He is love itself. And if you feel like you just can't do it, remember that God can give us the self-control to push through. So as you continue through this week, remember all of these things and more. I hope you have a great week. If you ever have any questions or want to start a conversation, leave a comment. And I'll see all you in the next video.